Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot coming at you with the weekly comic book roundup. This week we had a pretty decent haul, enough for 2 videos, so we'll start off with this week's Marvel books. Just kicking things off with Avengers Empyre, number 0. So, for those who may not recall, before, the world went to hell, Marvel was amping up towards its summer event, Empyre, which would see the Skrull, a combined force of Kree and Skrulls, coming to Earth, under the leadership of Hulkling, of the Young Avengers. We've already had one pre-Empyre one-shot, basically retelling the story of the Kree-Skrull War. Now we'll be looking at the Avengers role and things to come. We begin with a flashback. The blue area of the moon. The Kree fighting a race called the Kotati. It's explained that this is actually a dream that Tony Stark is having. Well, dream, vision. It explains that, and it's explained that he was there once upon a time thanks to Immortus, one of the variations of Kang. Basically, Immortus, however, allowed Tony Stark to see how the Kree-Skrull War began. Turns out, however, there's something going on in space, and there's an SOS from the blue area of the moon. Tony thinks this is too much of a coincidence. And it's explained that the Kree-Skrull War began as basically the Kree took on the Kotati. The winners would gain the Skrulls' favor. And it was basically who could use the sparse local resources of the blue area of the moon most efficiently. The Kree built a vast city mined from lunar minerals. The Kotati grew a garden, and therefore won. So the Kree kind of wiped them out, and yeah. So the Avengers arrive. Cap immediately notes that the garden on the moon is silent. He explains to She-Hulk explains to Hulk when she asks that there are there are sounds you listen for, and sounds you can tune out in jungles. The buzz of insects, the calls of birds, and he's not hearing any of that. And he goes on to add, there's no animal life there. And then something partially resembling a Kree sentry attacks, taking out Thor in one blast with and then using the rest of his weaponry to seemingly take down everyone. However, Swordsman leaps out. Manages to knock off the head of the sentry, the plant head. They finish it up. Ghost Rider, of course, has no idea who this is, and is chided for not studying the Avengers files by Black Panther, who explains that the being is what remains of a great man and great Avenger, Jacques Duquesne, the Swordsman. We also get a brief rundown of who Swordsman was, training many great Avengers, including Hawkeye. Gave him working knowledge of all weapons, not just the bow. Jacques, however, joined the Avengers to betray them, but he couldn't even do that. And in the end, his inner demons cost him his life, but he died for the cause, for the Celestial Madonna. And in so doing, he became worthy of purification. His dead body was reseated as a Kotati. And so Swordsman explains that he is Swordsman, just a perfected version, merged with an ancient Kotati intelligence. For all of Duquesne's human flaws, the unforgivable sins of flesh kind, they deserve a second chance. And he, as all the surviving Kotati, deserve one. That's what the Garden's for. It's sacred ground to them, where it all went wrong so long ago, where the Skrulls engineered the conflict with the Kree, and where the Kree learned to hate them. And the Garden is where they finally lift their heads to meet the sun. It's further explained that Swordsman and Mantis, well, Celestial Madonna, did have a child, the Celestial Messiah. Sequoia, or Koi to his friends. It's also explained that in the story Avengers Celestial Quest, Thor and Sequoia fought alongside, shared an adventure. So Sequoia does explain to Thor that they do kind of need a push for the Garden. There's no water after all. So Thor summons forth a storm in the blue area of the moon. And Tony kind of goes into, as Iron Man's narrating, he has a bit of a rather long thought process. Like, he doesn't believe in gods. He believes in Thor as a weather manipulator, an avenger, a friend, powerful being from a race of similar beings with long lives and committed biographers, and, okay, their own physical laws, but he believes in what he can see, what he can verify. He just doesn't have faith. But he wonders why this feels like an anointing, like the first baptism. So he's wearing armor. He's dry as a bone in the armor. Why does he feel so clean? So the Avengers, and including Sequoia and Swordsman, discuss what's going on. And further explain that they've been brought together to ally against the remaining Kotati. Goes on to explain that while Hulkling is the emperor of this alliance, the true power stands behind the throne and seeks only the death of the Kotati. The Allied fleet moving towards to burn the Garden down, a propaganda victory to cement their alliance. It's decided that Alpha Flight will be kept in the loop, though. However, diplomacy might not exactly be what they go with. Then Iron Man gives a speech. Basically, that it's as simple as they're the Avengers, and there has come a day unlike any other. An enemy no single hero can withstand, and we know how to deal with that. We can keep Alpha Flight in the loop, but here and now, people need them to fight for them. And when that call goes forth, we don't stand back and debate it. We stand together and we stand up. Always. And he says, he says the words, Avengers assemble. Explaining he puts a little extra bass in it because he can. It feels right. It feels real. And he continues to think to himself, the Kree-Skrull Alliance can bring it on and throw their worst at him. All the space fleet, super soldiers, ultimate weapons, none of it will matter because Earth's mighty heroes have assembled. They're going to protect the innocent. They're going to stand by their friends no matter what it takes. No matter who gets in their way. Which ends on, apparently, the Fantastic Four flying with the Kree, Skrull, fleet. There's also mentions of the events of Incoming, namely the murder investigation, how the Kree and the Skrull were found killed with one with a tree growing from the body. That is where the issue ends. There should be, I presume coming soon will be Empyre number 0, Fantastic Four. Hopefully soon, I'm guessing next month, the various Empyre will kick into high gear with 2 issues in the first month. One in the third, one in the second, 2 in the third, and one plus all of the epilogue stuff in the final month. So hopefully I'll get started soon. And that is where the issue ends. Moving on, we've got Thor number 5. Where we left off, Thor, now the Herald of Galactus, briefly at least, temporarily, had been forced to face 2 of his closest allies, Beta Ray Bill and the Lady Sif, who were basically not enthused with how Galactus was going about doing things and stopping the Black Winter. Our last issue ended with the Black Winter coming upon the cosmically empowered pair. So the issue begins on Asgard at the Rainbow Bridge. Sif, now the Watcher of the Bifrost, witnesses her king being devoured by a great cosmic plague, unable to assist, unable to look away. She then sees Volstagg pleading with the city in chaos to quell the rising unrest of its newest citizens, unsure if today brings Ragnarok or if his next meal will be in Valhalla. Then on to the broken god of the godless, whispering a prayer beneath the dying world tree, unfit in his own mind or his soul. She then sees Loki, plotting another turn of the wheel, not sure of the game just yet or the players. So she turns her gaze from it all and closes her eyes. Beta Ray Bill then comes to speak to her. And kind of, at least somewhat convinces her to, maybe Thor likely has reason for his actions. Also, Volstagg has proposed a gathering, a chance to discuss the goings-on and get rather heroically drunk, presumably. Bill invites Sif, and she simply says that when Thor comes home. Back with Thor and Galactus at the fighting the Black Winter, and it's not going well. The storm is taking them both. Thor is asked if he wishes to see his end. He's shown Gore, the God Butcher. He's shown Loki. He's shown Magog. And a host of other enemies. Surtur, Mephisto, the Juggernaut, Doctor Doom, Annihilus, Apocalypse, Malekith, Enchantress. And he fights these illusions off. I think even the Midgard Serpent shows up in all of this. But Thor realizes that not all things are right. He's known this for some time. He's felt it. The echoes of the thunder and the weight of his hammer. Something is wrong. Something is broken. And in an effort to free himself from the Black Winter, Thor unleashes a God Blast. And then the Black Winter takes on the form, a shadowy version of Thor's Herald form, to assault Galactus. And Galactus and the Black Winter argue over whether or not the Winter should speak and tell Thor what it should. Turns out the Black Winter is there to claim his herald, Galactus. That is why Galen of Ta was allowed to survive the last destruction, so that he could become the Black Winter's herald. And that is where the issue ends. Moving on to Iron Man 2020, number 4. Where we left off, the machine revolution actually seemed, the robot revolution actually seemed rather, well, beaten. Mark 1 had fallen. They had tried to prevent the proliferation of a code that would strip AI of their free will. But seemingly, the members of the robot revolution managed to escape. Mark 1, however, or as most would know him, Tony Stark, is reliving much of his life. His birth, becoming Iron Man, partying, forming the Avengers, facing off against various villains, making friendships, his fight with alcoholism, Civil War, meeting Ironheart, fighting Captain Marvel. And it turns out that the AI, known as Friday, is helping him, trying to help him get back, convince him that he is Tony Stark. At Bane Tower, Sunset Bane is trying to sell various world leaders on Bane battle mechs to put down the robot revolution cells throughout the world. Of course, she's asked why Iron Man doesn't simply just take care of these cells himself. Then cut to the residence of one Andy Bang, a former Banetronics employee. Machine Man has arrived, in part because his robot brain needed Korean beer. Also, he has a favor to ask. As Bang is the only person that Machine Man knows, he's familiar with Tricasa's programming. As Yokasa is still under the influence of the obedience code. As of the end of the the Machine Man 2020 miniseries. And then they're contacted by the ghost within the machine. I mean, Bang is not the mole inside Banetronics. Someone else is. But Bang happily let Sunset Bane and Arno Stark believe he was. At the Port Authority in Manhattan, Iron Man picks up two people who are not doing too well and, well, apparently need help. It turns out to be Howard and Maria Stark. And it's explained that they have the same degenerative disease that Arno had. He uses to bring them back as themselves. He used DNA, his own DNA, and so they're dying, being out in the open world. And in fact, they die while being flown away. Back in the 13th floor, Friday's is further trying to convince Mark 1 that he actually is Tony Stark. He's not just a construct. And that they're going, they can basically, fix him. In New Jersey, at Machinesmith's Machinesmith's hideout, the Robot Revolution is trying to save Mark 1 in the physical world when they're contacted by Machine Man Jocasta and Dr. Bang. They now have a way to beat the obedience code. Back at Banetronics, Arno Stark is working on something and realizes, he's working on a few things. One, he's making new bodies for his parents, more durable forms for them. The Arsenal motherboard bodies from the Eastscape recreated in the real world. He goes on to explain that he's working on something to attach to a satellite. It's a combination of Mandarin's old hypno rays as well as Controller's brainwashing tech. And so Bane asks, okay, well, how are you? Those work great on people, but how are you going to make them work on robots? And Arno explains that he's not. It's proven too complicated. And after all, robot behavior is far easier to predict. A more efficient way to unite AIs and humans under the coalition that Arno needs is to bring the more difficult party under his control. People. Sunset Bane is not a fan of this. Explaining, it's one thing to mess with robots' minds, but she's people. Then he explains that no, she's AI. Has been for some time. He explains that apparently when she got a tiny scar on her face and insisted Arno fix it, he took the opportunity to make a whole new Sunset Bane. He goes on to explain all this time, he hasn't been working for Sunset. She's been working for him. Meanwhile, the cat, I actually don't recall the name of the cat, but is revealed to be the mole within Banetronics. And the mole passes on information to Friday. And then Mark 1 insists that he is not Tony Stark, however. And then various versions of Tony Stark from throughout his life show up. Teenage Tony, young Tony, teenager Tony, businessman Tony, the original Iron Man Tony, founder of the Avengers Tony, even alcoholic Tony. And Mark 1 says that she can stop all of it because he's not Tony Stark. He doesn't want to be. He's just an echo of Tony. His idea. He is Iron Man. And Friday explains that, she's one of Tony Stark's ideas too, and she's proud of that, but she's more. And she explains, so is Mark 1. And she's not the one, trying to convince him. The 13th floor is his world. He created it. These are all aspects of him. He's basically talking to himself. And so all the aspects kind of, touch him, and then he says that he's Tony Stark and he always has been. And it's time to get to work. And that is where the issue ends. However, we're not done with the Robot Revolution in 2020 yet. We've still got Rescue 2020 #2. Where we left off, Rescue had managed to get a genetic sample, a DNA sample from Tony Stark's biological mother, as Harold and Maria are not actually Tony's parents. Well, biologically speaking, rather his adopted parents. However, getting the genetic sample from his biological father will likely prove much harder, as well his father is a member in good standing of Hydra. So we begin Hydra base Omicron. Young Hydra operative is bringing in coffee for orders for everyone, and ends up dropping them all over the floor. Pepper comes along and helps them clean up. Turns out that the AI facial recognition in the building isn't working, so they couldn't print her a visitor's pass. She continues to explore, with talking to Bethany Cave as she makes it through, and she explains that she won't be discovered, as she's a woman is wearing a sensible suit. She's practically invisible. And when he ends up sharing an elevator with one of the Hydra higher-ups, it has to fight off the rescue armor from forming around her. But it turns out there's a big to-do going on. The Hydra bot. During the presentation, Pepper manages to find Tony's father, and the young Hydra agent from earlier becomes an unwilling volunteer in a demonstration of the Hydra bot. The demonstration goes wrong. With the Hydra bot explaining that the goal of Hydra is a new world order, a world order of superior beings. The Hydra bot has accepted this mission. Humans are the inferior beings that must be conquered. So, Pepper armors up, saves the young Hydra agent, fights off the Hydra bots, and manages to find Tony's father. Then the young agent comes in, because they didn't just make one Hydra bot, they made a whole bunch. And during the fight, the tip of one of Tony's father's fingers gets cut off on accident, and, well, Rescue is able to reason with the Hydra bot by basically asking, what am I? The Hydra bot looks at her and says, you're a robotic being. You have superior technology, so therefore a superior being. And so the Hydra bot says that as it must eliminate lesser beings, it self-destructs. And with the DNA sample in hand, Rescue leaves as Hydra base Omicron at least partially blows up. And that is where things end. All leading to, hopefully, next month's Iron Man 2020, number 5. And that's it for this part of the roundup. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.